Thank you all for logging in for this webinar. I'd like to introduce myself. I am Dr. Rupa. I am a consultant radiologist working at Manipal Hospital, Bangalore, and my special interests are women's imaging, particularly breast imaging. Can we have the next slide, please? What we plan to do, Professor Somshekhar and myself, in the next half an hour or 40 minutes, is take you through the guidelines for breast cancer management during the COVID pandemic. So Dr. Somshekhar will be talking initially from a breast surgeon's perspective, and I will take over after that from the breast radiologist's perspective. And then we'd like to actually share a few cases that we did in our institute actually during the lockdown and the COVID to show you how we followed the guidelines for breast cancer management and how we had to adjust some of the features to suit our local population. And I have great pleasure in introducing my co-speaker. Can I have the next slide, please? Professor Somshekhar is chairman of oncology in the Manipal Cancer Center. He is the head of the Department of Surgery and Gynec Oncology, and he is the president of the Society for Breast Surgeons of India. And I worked with Dr. Somshekhar for the last 10 years. And what I like most about him is, despite being a very busy practitioner and a very busy surgeon, he's very particular about being up to date with his knowledge, and that's what he gives for his patients. He gives them the best treatment, cutting edge knowledge and treatment. So without much ado, I will hand over to you, Som.
Thank you very much, Rupa. That's very kind word coming from somebody whom I respect a lot. Me and my team and my entire people, actually, we always say we own a world-class breast care unit in Manipal Cancer Center, Manipal Hospital, because of the imaging support and backup what Rupa gives. A breast surgeon is somebody who is like blind, deaf, with hands tied if they don't have a good imaging specialist. Because remember, the voice of breast surgeon actually is a very good breast imaging specialist. So I welcome everybody, and at the outset I thank Dr. Rupa and the Society of Breast Imaging and GE for having organized such a wonderful academic feast. So initial about 10 minutes, what I'm going to do is, I will just say how things change for us during COVID response time. Typically, when a patient presents to our OPD with a breast symptom or a breast lump or a suspected breast lesion, how we would proceed. Then in about 7 to 8 slides, I'm going to review what are the national, international guidelines by various breast surgery society, British Association of Surgical Onco, and then Indian Association, and then International Association, how we should modify ourselves in this COVID response time, keeping ourselves safe, keeping our patients safe, yet not compromising the outcome of the patient. I bring warm regards from our Manipal Comprehensive Cancer Center. The term comprehensive is because of an excellent breast oncopathology, nuclear medicine, imaging, intervention, psycho-oncologist, and rehabilitation, and then cancer survivor group which we have, and surgeon forms a minuscule part of it, and we take all the credit because of the good work done by our team. If you look back, the COVID-19 crisis are very tough for oncology. I know it has affected all the healthcare people, but more so for oncology. I'll tell you what is the reason, because we have two huge challenges. Challenge number one, patients who are immunocompromised, like oncology patients, they behave different after they get infected with COVID, because they have more chance than normal people in getting COVID affected, and their morbidity outcome is different. Also, the impact of cancer on COVID is also different, because you have an immunocompromised, so which means COVID has an impact on oncology patients, and cancer itself has an impact. So we have a double whammy attack in this scenario. Keeping this in mind, the ESMO, the European Society, the BASO, and then the IASO, SSO and ASCO have brought specific guidelines, which I'm going to let you know how it is. Because we have problem with manpower, exposure, infrastructure availability, safety of the patient, same infrastructure. Suppose you have a mammography lying couch or a standing. The moment another patient touches it, you know that the guideline to sterilize them, the way you need to do social distancing, physical distancing, intervention, aerosol being generated, how to manage. So next patient is safe, the healthcare people are safe, and yet not compromised. Because remember, this tissue again go to the pathology, there is a cross. So there is a very big dilemma which needs to be managed. At the outset, I want to say there are three curves which I really want all of you to see. Based on a large experience of multicentric in Wuhan we had. Look at this particular curve. This is a curve when there is no cancer and their impact on the COVID patient. Look at the severity during the course of infection. Flat curve. Then you have a cancer which a patient has no metastasis, which means a loco-regional early breast cancer. Still see the way they behave, the events happening in them, it is far higher than the normal people. Now imagine if you have a disease which is metastatic, lymph node metastatic, liver, lung metastasis in a breast cancer, see how events are, which means you can see a leap and bound change in the events during the recovery period, chemo period, radiation period and various. So this shows how, our patients are totally different. It is also found that suppose you operate a patient, breast cancer, and you think they are asymptomatic, because the long incubation period of 14 days, they turn out to be COVID positive during their convalescent phase. They have 25% chance of mortality because of lung problem, need to go to ICU, ventilator, pneumonia and oxygen requirement. So it is very important these patients screened well, so we don't achieve this 25% mortality where there may be non-surgical modality available for the same breast cancer patient. So the benefit risk assessment needs to be done. Now this is a scale called as ESAS, elective surgery acuity. See, we say a trauma, bleeding, perforation, acute abdomen or emergency. A normally walking breast cancer patient may look non-elective, but look at the description of the elective patient. All the cancer patient, breast cancer, come under recommend tier 3A as per. So which means cancer surgeries are not elective. It may be a non-emergency surgery, but the disease makes it an emergency. So they are time-bound emergency disease. So high acuity surgery or workup treatment should not be postponed indefinitely. This is very important to understand. So the ESMO, European Society of Oncology, classifies cancer patients into high priority, medium, low. High means if you don't start the treatment immediately, there is a detrimental outcome. Medium, you cannot delay beyond 6 weeks, so hormone therapy, neoadjuvant, oral chemo can be started. Low priority like DCIS, you can delay until reasonable pandemic effect has come down. So SSO, the International Society of Oncology, which gives guidelines for breast for us, divides it into category 1, 2 and 3. Category 1 low risk, 8 weeks you can delay, do telecommunication. Category 2 you cannot wait, but you can start with neoadjuvant oral hormone therapy if they are HR positive, hormone breast tumors or oral chemo. Category 3 you cannot, you have to do surgery in reasonable that week. I'll tell you how it follows. Remember, it is not a person who is a fantastic skilled surgeon or imaging specialist or the best hospital which survives or a best patient. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, not the most intelligent, but the one which adapts. See, look at us last 1-2 months, how we have adapted. Mask, moving with mask, moving like penguin, not touching anybody, social distancing, physical distancing. We have scrubbed our hand million times, which in our entire lifetime we might have not washed so much. Hospitals, patients are different, Ziploc they are carrying, everybody is screening, social distancing and the relatives. So adaptability. So how we as a breast surgeon, breast imaging people with breast cancer patient adapt now goes a long way to know. Because in India we have a lot of young population. But breast cancer is aggressive in young. We are 1 decade early. So we can't indefinitely wait. And even more, second most important thing you need to know is a patient at stage 1, almost 99% survival. The moment they are in stage 2, see how much compromise has happened. So a patient comes in stage 1, we delay 8 weeks, push them to second stage and look where we are. And if a patient comes in stage 1 and we delay 8-9 weeks, then we are at stage 3, look at the survival, which means 0.5% is the mortality of COVID but the cancer mortality is 50%. So we need to balance both of them. It's very important. And if you leave a patient, oh, no problem, you have a small lump here, and when it becomes 1-2 centimeter come without taking help of imaging specialist, then this is when they come. And average T size in addition to node size varies the outcome. So how should we approach now in our place, how we approach in our breast unit, and how a COVID approach? Remember, all palpable tumors may not be cancer and all non-palpable lesion may not be. 10% are cancer. Never ever do an FNA. Please apply triple assessment. Clinical examination and then imaging, mammogram, and if a patient is in both combination of sono and memo, and image guided core biopsy. Don't say that a patient comes with a cancer, oh, it is COVID time, I'll delay. Diagnosis approach, knowing the receptor status is mandatory, immediate. Then you can see the guideline, who can wait, who cannot wait. Triple assessment and not FNAC. And remember, in our institution, we don't do core biopsy ourselves. We always refer for image guided. They go down to radiology department, they have image, because image guided core has highest chance of being positive. Imagine you get necrosis, you do today, 3 days later patient comes, biopsy comes after 2 days, negative, one more you do, already you are delayed, see the agony. So if you straight away examine the patient, go down for imaging same day, evaluate it, and then guided core, and 48 hours you get it, all the answers are available. So triple assessment. Mind you, it is very, very important also to have ultrasound in young people. Why triple assessment? It is a gold standard. If you see all the references, 99% of the time, if you apply triple assessment, you can get a diagnosis in the breast cancer. And it avoids unnecessary bad scar, open biopsies, and patient loses breast conservative option. Avoids that, you can plan breast conservation, avoids 2 procedure, 2 anesthesia, 2 admissions, and 2 cost and excision. Remember, good tissue you get if you do image guided. So happy pathologist, all imaging, ERPR, HER2, Ki67 can be done. You can comment invasive, non-invasive, receptor study, so neoadjuvant treatment can be started, especially during COVID time. And you can leave a marker if you plan a neoadjuvant, so it doesn't completely have a clinical response. Tumor banking possible. Please don't do FNA, and gone are the days. Diagnostic open incisional biopsy is crime in this era. I get a lot of people who had an incision for diagnosis. To put a knife to diagnose a breast cancer is very bad. Find a good imaging center, send them there. Cost economical, quick, patient retains breast, loses 2 procedure, and fantastic diagnosis quickly. So this is a chart. I'm not going to say, you can take a screenshot. I'll share my slides with Rupa. You can borrow. This is, we have given a guideline through Association of Breast Surgeon. Triple assessment, clinical examination sensitivity is only this much. Radiological, sono, memo, and then in young people or BRCA positive or indeterminate, how MRI comes. Then how the imaging of core biopsy should be done, FNAC should not be done, only that of a node ultrasound guided you can do, and how to do where vacuum comes. Now how we will see how to prioritize during COVID time. High, medium, low. You don't have to read all the slide. I have put only in the red which are important. Self-diagnosis of a breast lump and a symptom is high priority. Remember, doing an initial workup doesn't mean you have to operate. Then pathology, if it says abnormal or on memo, you need to do Virat's 5 high priority workup. Medium, Virat's 4, or a metastatic survey like PET scan I want to do, now I want to do CT lung, this can be medium priority. Diagnosis, receptor imaging, high priority. Low, in a asymptomatic, non-opportunistic mammogram screening alone is low priority. In a metastatic proved breast cancer, implement telemedicine. So high, medium, low. Now, if you look back next, what are the guidelines in COVID? See here, I am putting the reference, what is the guideline? SSO, Breast Resource COVID Guideline. If there is a ATPR or a prophylactic risk reduction surgery, these can be deferred for 3 months. Already you cold well, it is only atypical hyperplasia, no invasive. Or patient is BRCA, you need say risk reduction surgeries, these should be deferred for 3 months. Or patient needs a reconstruction, this can be done delayed, so delayed. Now, if you look, if you have done a good evaluation, the report comes as DCIS, no invasive. If they are hormone receptor positive, endocrine therapy should be tried for 5 and delay other treatment up to 12 weeks. If they are receptor negative but in situ, low volume disease, no need to jump for surgery, then you do teleconsultation. If you have a ductal carcinoma in situ microinvasion, then receptor will guide us what to do. If you look at ESMO guideline, once you are diagnosed with invasive early breast cancer, surgery in the patient should be completed only if they have completed all neoadjuvant chemo. You already started in lockdown phase 1 to neoadjuvant, they have completed now, and the golden period to do now would be within 4 to 5 weeks. Only those patients, or if they have progressed now after completing neoadjuvant, they should have immediate surgery. Rest all patients can wait. Or if you are operated, then there is a related complication like hematocele or an abscess you need to do. So now what is IASO-BASO guideline for receptor positive? If the patient is receptor positive, please give neoadjuvant hormone therapy. Safe to wait for 6 months in HR positive stage 1-2. If an option of intraoperative single dose radiation is there, please do it. Try to avoid conventional 5 weeks of radiation. Everyday patient coming, attendant coming, patient lying on the couch and sterilizing with sodium hypochlorite very high. Recently we all know the FAST trial has come where 5 days of radiation is enough. And don't offer immediate reconstruction, do delay, and this is the evidence. Suppose you have a triple negative patient, ER negative, PR negative, HER2 negative, please send them for neoadjuvant chemo, delay treatment, surgery for 3 to 4 months. Only patient where you need to operate on priority category 1 is triple negative but T1 N0 M0. These are the only patient where neoadjuvant chemo is not recommended, they need to operate, which means you can see very well what is the guideline. Suppose patient has completed chemo, if they have taken chemo, please put on hormone, again delay surgery for 8 weeks. Remember, if the patient undergoes surgery, COVID becomes positive, 30% mortality. If the patient is HER2 positive, they have taken targeted therapy, please give hormone therapy, delay by 8 weeks. Only patient who are triple negative, completed chemo, they cannot wait beyond 4 weeks, you need to operate. So if you can identify in all the guidelines, only 2 places where you operate. Rest all patient you should send. Suppose you have a locally advanced breast cancer, do core, evaluation, ERP or HER2/nk67. If chemo required, please give chemo. If hormone required, give hormone and you can delay. The only condition where immediate surgery should be done is malignant phylloids of breast and primary breast sarcoma. There is no alternative chemo or radiation, and their aggressive tumor, this is the patient with good protection you need to do. Metastatic breast cancer, please don't jump into any major treatment, single line oral chemo you give, hormone therapy you give, telemedicine, then call back safely. So these are the broad guidelines. If you select a patient for surgery, 3 things should be done. RT-PCR for COVID testing, HRCT lung within 48 hours combination. In India, we don't have an antibody spot testing. If that can be approved by ICMR, you can do. So what are the high priority which requires calling patient to hospital? Hematoma infection in the breast, breast abscess, or breast cancer during pregnancy, you need to call them to hospital to start treatment. Or there are symptoms of side effects. Rest all is medium and low priority, don't jump. During this time, please include special consent because the outcome of the patient due to COVID may be different. Patient can get infected by other patient, other attendant hospital, so have a special consent. Have a special consent. It is not mandatory to force a patient for RT-PCR swab. We have a special consent. We counsel. If patient agrees, we do that. So if possible, RT-PCR within 72 hours, HRCT lung less than 48, infectious disease evaluation and a questionnaire. If antibody spot, if you do all 4, there is a 98% you can pick up. This is the protocol we follow at our center. This is the ID clearing score based on all factors we have, and then we classify into low and high risk. Low risk we offer. If patient falls into high risk, unless it is an emergency or one of those 3 conditions, stage 1 triple negative, or patient have completed chemo and then now they need surgery, we don't operate. We use hormone or oral chemo or telemedicine. These are the protection we follow based on low and high risk. We know that if you don't wear a good mask, we use P100 respiratory mask, and a good protection we actually do with the patients to go ahead. And these are the OT precaution which you need to do. Electrocautery during breast surgery should be kept for minimal settings so vaporization doesn't happen. And then clean all the things with sodium hypochlorite. These are the checklist. I have 2 slides to end. OT modified for air change more than 20 per hour. If you don't have negative OT, air velocity 25 fpm, positive pressure, filtration, HEPA filters, humidity temperature 21 plus or minus 3 degrees best. Less than that, not conducive. More than that, not conducive. And in conclusion, If you are a young people, don't get frustrated. Utilize this term to refresh your knowledge, like how we are doing right now with this webinar. Publish an article in the breast, edit your videos, teach, do write blogs, motivate yourself and your colleagues, acquire knowledge. And I leave you with this slide. Beautifully, BASO has pragmatic management of breast cancer, where not to operate, where to do, what radiation evaluation you have to do on modification. This is available on the web beautifully. 10 points. All that should be managed in breast care at this moment is written very well. These are the references. And I thank Rupa and all of you having joined for this. And I hand over to Dr. Rupa to take it forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Somshekhar. That was wonderful. So I will just go on to my presentation, Singh, and meanwhile you can log in your questions, anything which you have to ask Somshekhar. He'll take it at the end. Thank you. I'll just open my. Okay, that was wonderful, isn't it? All those guidelines and how precise we can be, even when we are working in a busy unit, in a corporate hospital. And so I'll go forward and talk a bit about the guidelines as it pertains to breast radiology. Okay, so my recommendations are similar to the ESMO guidelines, but I'm just taking it from a consortium which consisted of the American Society of Breast Surgeons, the American College of Radiology, and the NCCN, and they are very similar to those which are propagated worldwide. Okay, and again, we prioritize patients as category A. These patients cannot wait. You have to treat them. You have to look after them. Category B patients may wait, but they cannot wait indefinitely. And category C patients can definitely wait. Okay. So again, priority A category. So what are the conditions which would be priority A as far as breast cancer is and the breast radiologist is? Okay. So this is a condition which would be immediately life-threatening. They may be clinically unstable, and you require urgent treatment for preservation of life and for control of progression of disease. Role of the breast imaging actually in category A lesions is very few scenarios. You could have a severe breast abscess formation, probably post-op. Okay, so that's for the role of the breast radiologist. But remember, there might be a major role for the radiologist as such in post breast cancer surgery scenario. Like you might be looking at a PE, and that's a different ball game, and you would have to evaluate that as a radiologist, not as a breast radiologist. So that's category A. Now, priority B patients. Okay, these patients do not have life-threatening conditions. Their treatment cannot be indefinitely delayed until the end of the pandemic, and most breast cancer patients actually fall into this group. A short delay, which they define as about 6 to 12 weeks, would not impact overall outcome, but longer delays could impact outcome. And this is again a further divided, actually triaged. The B patients are again further triaged as B1, B2, and B3, depending upon the priority. And so that's just a off-the-cuff sort of triage, which you would probably do like you do for BI-RADS 4 lesions. So what is the role of breast imaging in priority B patients? Okay, as Dr. Somshekhar said, diagnostic imaging for a patient who has an abnormal mammogram. So she's had a mammogram. It has been reported abnormally, and you would really have to take imaging forward in this patient. Or for a patient who needs imaging for a very suspicious breast symptoms, particularly if it is self-realized. So you have a lump, a hard lump, or breast discharge, particularly if it's bloody breast discharge. These are the sort of patients who definitely would require diagnostic imaging. What about biopsy? So biopsy, BI-RADS 4 or 5 lesions should be biopsied as priority B. And there is a school of thought which actually believe that BI-RADS 4A lesions, that is where your suspicion, your suspicion after imaging is less than 10%, can actually wait for after the COVID pandemic. What about breast MRI? Okay, breast MRI can be done as a priority B, particularly if you have known patient of breast cancer and you need to know the extent of disease evaluation for further treatment, and if you need to assess for pre-chemotherapy assessment to, and also probably assess after chemotherapy to see the response to treatment. What about priority C category? These are patients whose treatment or services can be indefinitely deferred until the pandemic is over, but with a caveat, without adversely impacting outcomes. That's very important. So you could delay treatment or services, but you should not impact outcomes. So what are the role of breast imaging in priority C? So these include patients who have BI-RADS category 3. So you have seen probably a lesion which you really think is benign. Your index of suspicion is less than 2%. You've told to come back for a follow-up in 6 months. You could delay that, okay? You delay that and tell the patient, come back after the pandemic, okay? All screening examinations, including mammography, ultrasound, and MRI. But there is a field of thought who actually feel that BRCA mutation carriers under the age of 40 should have their screening tests, either a mammogram or an MRI, without undue delay. Okay? Because they have a high propensity of having cancers and very aggressive cancers. So on March 26, 2020, the American Society of Breast Surgeons and the American College of Radiology recommended that all medical facilities postpone all breast screening examinations effective immediately. And on March 6th, the Society of Breast Imaging again said that all facilities should delay screening breast imaging examinations, and even they could delay diagnostic studies on women without a clinically concerning symptom, such as patients with probably 6-month follow-up, or patients just with breast pain who are coming in for a diagnostic study. And they had suggested that once the pandemic had abated, efforts should be redoubled to complete all delayed screening without undue delay. But on May 5th, they did a U-turn like many of the presidents in the world today. They said the Society of Breast Imaging asked facilities to restart routine screening, but they would practice social distancing, masks. They would have all their patients screened for COVID before the routine screening. They suggested that appointments be actually spread out to prevent crowding in their centers, and that they could return to pre-COVID levels of appointments after the pandemic was over. So these are the guidelines which have been given to us by many societies, but it's important to realize that will these guidelines suffice in a country like ours? Will they have to be modified to suit our population? And will they have to be modified actually for different states in our country? But before that, just let's look at some statistics we've been collecting over the last 6 weeks or so. Okay, so these graphs show the number of mammograms which were done in about a 5 to 6 week period pre-COVID, and this shows the number of mammograms which are done during the lockdown. And you can see there's a significant decrease in the number of mammograms which were done in all the institutes which we looked at, particularly in Tata Memorial Hospital, Mumbai, which there was a real drop in mammograms during the lockdown as compared to the pre-COVID, pre-lockdown period, okay? And consequently, there was also a drop in biopsies, breast biopsies done for patients in all these 3 institutes. Excuse me, Ajay, I'm having a problem going to the next slide.
Champion.
Can you just, can I just not be able to go, I'm not able to go to the next slide. Do I have to close this or?
Just please close and reopen, please.
The whole slide?
Minimize and reopen.
Fine, I'll do that. End show, restart the swim. Sorry for that. Yep. And just restart from here. Ajay, can I just restart
Yes,
from the
please.
current
Yes,
slide?
please.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, fine, perfect, okay. So consequent to a decrease in mammograms, particularly diagnostic mammograms and breast biopsies, of course, in all these institutes, there was a drop in breast surgeries, okay? So I just like to thank these lovely women, Dr. Rupa from Kovai Medical College Hospital, Dr. Janaki from AIMS Kochi, and Dr. Palak from Tata Memorial Hospital for all this data, which they shared with us. Okay, so we know about the alarming statistics which we have for breast cancer in India. Dr. Somshekhar also discussed that with you. We know we're having an increase in the number of cancers. We know that nearly 50% of our patients are actually below the age of 50, and we know we have a large number of patients who actually present quite late. Why do women in India present late? Of course, it might, in breast cancer, probably it's a lack of awareness. It may be an economic issue. It could be a social issue, a social stigma, but I think it's also a me last syndrome that many Indian women suffer from. It's my needs, my issues, my health comes last. That's even in the best of times. So in the worst of times, they're actually trudging thousands of kilometers to reach their home, when they're cooped in their house without help and a dwindling income, when they're probably even looking at an increase in domestic abuse, a health issue for themselves, a painless breast lump, a bloody discharge in the nipple, a lump in the armpit could be easily ignored and put on the back burner. So you wonder how many breast cancers are there out in India which have not come to us because of the lockdown. What about screening? Screening, as you know, in India is all opportunistic. We had a small study in our institute where we looked at, initially we looked at 4,500 asymptomatic women, and then we have an ongoing study where we're looking at breast screening with our newer digital mammogram and tomosynthesis. And in both of these studies, we found at least, or we picked up at least 4 to 5, or let's say 3 to 5 breast cancers in every 1,000 mammograms we've done. So during the lockdown in our institute alone, we have not done 500 health check mammograms. So have we lost those 2 to 3 breast cancers forever? That's a question we have to ask ourselves. And that's just our institute. There are a number of institutes in India doing opportunistic screening. So the Society of Breast Imaging on March 6th said that once the pandemic has abated, please do redouble your efforts to complete all delayed screening. But is that possible in India where all screening is opportunistic? Seems a far-fetched, doesn't it? So what are the challenges we have for breast imaging and breast biopsies, etc. during the COVID? Because we have the challenges both of the virus and of the lockdown. Okay, so what are the challenges for the patient? Logistics, economics, protection. The doctor, we're worried about the missing numbers. Where are those cancers? I mean, are they just missed forever? Are they going to come back to us in stage 3? We have a problem about logistics also, we'll talk about that, and the big problem about protection, protecting yourself, protecting your patient, and of course economics is always a problem in people like who work in corporate hospitals like Dr. Som and myself. What are the logistic problems that we faced during COVID? Of course, patients, passes and curfew in Bangalore during peak lockdown. Patients couldn't move out without passes, and they were sometimes very difficult to get. Travel became very difficult because only private travel was allowed. There was no public transport. Reimbursement became an issue for many of these patients. Okay, what about doctors? We had a problem with personnel. We couldn't get nurses to assist us during breast biopsies because they had limited hours, and they had to go home in hospital transport, which was at a fixed time. We were running out of equipment, but luckily we had enough breast biopsy guns to last us through the lockdown, because we also had issues with travel. And the Society of Breast Imaging had actually suggested that during the pandemic, all imaging studies should be done the same day, the interpretation should be done at the same day, the biopsy, and the patient should be sent to surgery for a consultation all at the same day, actually to avoid overcrowding. And actually we started doing that in our institute, and we actually finished everything the same day for the simple reason because the patient would not have been able to come back during lockdown because of the curfew. Protection, Soms told you about it. So we have screening at the entrance of our institute. We have masks for all. We try to practice social distancing as far as possible. Okay, from our side, we have strict hand hygiene. We do clean the equipment, the mammography machine and the ultrasound machine after every patient. Again, protection prior to surgery. We had a lot of discussion with this as regards the role of HRCT in evaluating COVID patients, and actually the surgical colleagues and radiology have come to a compromise, and we do offer HRCT thorax day prior, or sometimes 24 hours prior, together with the PCR swab. So now I thought, rather than just talking to you about guidelines, myself and Som Shekhar talking to you about guidelines, I thought we'd look at some case scenarios, real patients who came to us during the COVID pandemic and during the lockdown. Som, you're online, you're on the audio, right?
Yes, I can see that.
Yeah. So we'll just start the cases as we discussed before, right? So this is a 37-year-old. She's post-BCS. She's had breast conservation surgery. She's finished her radiotherapy. She had severe pain over the surgical scar. She just finished radiotherapy, and she's had pain over the surgical scar. It was peak lockdown. She tried anti-inflammatory treatment. It didn't really improve, so she really came to us using a PASS, and this is what we saw. It looks on ultrasound, you can see it's a collection. It has some septae within it. It's not very big, but it looks a little convex. It looks a little tense. You can see there is. I'll just open my my pointer. Yeah. So you can see there's a slightly thick wall over it. It did look like a post-operative seroma to us, but Som Shekhar, what do you think we should do next? She is in severe pain. Every time I put the probe on her, she was very tender.
Yeah, there are two things which I need to tell. At the outset, before we go, I would just like to say it's a honor, Dr. Raghuram, who is the founder president of Association of Breast Surgeons of India, and the current president of ASI is also logged in, being there. He is actually the voice of breast surgeons in India and a guiding force for all of us. And it's honor, and I welcome Dr. Raghuram. Now coming to this particular case, now we know that gone are the era when we do a breast conservation surgery, a wide excision lumpectomy, we don't leave a lumpectomy cavity empty as it is. We always do some sort of volume displacement, local oncoplasty. So we oppose the entire lumpectomy bed. So post-surgery immediately you would not see a lumpectomy bed. So in young lady who had a post-breast conservation, also have a local oncoplasty, we should not see any space like this. So any space in a patient who had an oncoplasty, remember, surgery is completed, she has recovered fully, she has completed adjuvant chemo for next about 3 to 4 months, then she has gone for radiation for short course, 21 days, which means it would almost be 5 months of surgery. So any of them would always suggest that this patient must have had a infection bed, and as per all the guidelines it becomes category 1. any complication of any treatment needs immediate management, or any inflammatory abscess, hematoma or hematocele also needs. So this patient is somebody where quality of life, symptom relief is very important, and to avoid further complication needs a proper intervention. I would recommend her to meet you to get a guided evacuation completely. It's sort of 2-3 septation are there, maybe you need to aspirate a 3 or 4, then send for culture and guided antibiotic, that's all. So we know that now we don't do any open surgical drainage. Majority are managed by interventional radiology, guided aspiration and antibiotic based on that.
Yes, thanks, Somshek. So that's exactly what we did. We thought it probably a post-operative seroma, but she was drained for symptomatic relief, and we actually had to do it twice. Okay, so probably because she really did start a course of antibiotics, the fluid we got was actually clear, but and we did send it for culture. It didn't grow anything as expected, but it gave her immediate relief. Draining that fluid actually really helped that lady. So that was a category A because she needed symptomatic relief. Right. So let's look at the next patient here. This is a 47-year-old woman, quite well educated, right in the middle of lockdown, probably because she had more time. She noticed a mass in her breast on the left side, and that's the mammogram, and it's a very dense breast, but you can see a small area of a speculation there in the superior aspect of the left breast, not very well seen on the CC view, but it's just over there. Okay, so we saw something, we needed to go to the next step. We did an ultrasound, not very well seen on ultrasound either, but that you can see it's an irregular hypoechoic mass, classical description of a malignant mass. You can see those speculations, not very big again on ultrasound. We, as Dr. Somshekar said, we needed a diagnosis. Diagnosis is everything, okay? We did a biopsy, and that turned out to be IDC. She was ER, PR, HER2 positive. So, Dr. Som, your recommendations.
Because of COVID response, we should not get carried away and say, oh, you sit in home. Remember, surgery may be deferred, may not be immediately required, but a suspicious breast lump which could potentially be malignant of various form needs immediate evaluation. The reason is, once you do core biopsy, you get estrogen receptor, progesterone, HER2/neu and Ki67. If a patient is stage 1 and 2 as it appears here, because it looks to be probably T1 N0 M0 or at most borderline T2 N0 M0, so stage 1, stage 2A. If this lady turns out ER positive, HER2/neu negative, as per the current guidelines, due to COVID response, we put them hormone tablets, re-evaluate them on telemedicine. Surgery is deferred for 5 to 6 months. The only patient who needs treatment, not hormone therapy, is if they are estrogen receptor negative or if they are HER2/neu positive. Because she is HER2/neu positive, this patient would start non-surgical neoadjuvant anti-HER2/neu therapy, trastuzumab with chemo, and then we will re-evaluate her at the end of 2 months, 3 months. Then as per the SSO-ESMO guideline, she will go for sequential hormone therapy if pandemic has not subsided, and then she will go for surgery. So if this patient had been HER2/neu negative, I would have just put her on neoadjuvant hormone therapy, called her back on telemedicine for periodic checkup, and surgery would have come at 5th or 6th months.
Yes, so exactly. So that's what she went for. So it's a priority B. She needed to have a diagnosis. That's very important. Particularly, most of the guidelines said when it is a self-detected abnormality. So a woman knows her breasts the best. So if she picks up something which is abnormal, really it has to be evaluated. Okay, so that was a priority B and probably a priority B1. And because she had these very dense breasts, and the mass actually felt much larger on palpation than it did on ultrasound. MRI is also allowed for diagnostic evaluation, and particularly in this patient because she would be going on chemotherapy. Okay, so these are just a few images, and that's the primary mass she was feeling. But when you can see that there's a larger area of non-mass enhancement. So it's a bit larger than it actually looked on ultrasound and mammogram, and the extent of disease was beautifully demonstrated on MR, all done during the lockdown. So so this is a very unfortunate patient. She's only 37 years old, and this is the only slide I'm putting on here where the name of the patient is there, and that's actually to show you the date. That was the 20th of March 2020. So it's just before lockdown. This was done in an outside center. See, just got a few ultrasound images, so you can see a large mass there, and it seems to be extending into the retroareolar region. They've given us some pictures of the axilla showing some enlarged axillary lymph nodes. She had an FNAC in this outside institute. She was waiting for the report, which actually just said atypical cells. Okay, so this was a patient who was evaluated on the 20th of March. Got her FNAC results just about 2 days later, just before the lockdown. She was supposed to come to us for a biopsy, but then she got caught in the lockdown, and she actually came to us for a biopsy nearly 6 weeks later, actually in the first week of May. And that was what her biopsy said. It said we did a core biopsy. It was ER, PR, HER2 positive with a quite high KI. So what would you think about this, Somshekhar?
This is actually a very unfortunate situation. Number one, we know a young lady like her, breast cancer is quite aggressive and the doubling time is quite high. We all know that if you have a ER positive and well to moderate differentiated IDC, the doubling time is 256 days. But the moment the same thing becomes HER2 positive or ER negative, doubling times drops down to 46 to 62 days as per the clinical Abelov textbook of oncology. So this lady already has a node, very young, which means, it's going to be aggressive. And now when you look back, she's, HER2 positive, and look at the Ki-67, so high. This lady, this delay of 6 to 7 weeks would have really thrown her node positivity if she was not there, or chance of systemic metastasis, because HER2 positive, Ki-67, 70%, very sad. This lady, lockdown, not lockdown, should have had an evaluation, and if she was lucky, she was ER positive, HER2 negative, could have been on hormone therapy. But now this delay of 6 weeks really mattered. It's very unfortunate situation. Probably this lady should have availed telemedicine consultation with her nearest oncologist, who would have really seen a young lady with that imaging. And we know that we no longer do FNAC. It adds to more problem, delay in treatment, misguided treatment, multiple expensive biopsies. So core biopsy would have solved everything. She would have been instituted on anti-HER2 therapy with chemo first easily. So it's quite sad it didn't happen. And also it's very important to understand the treatment guideline vary on various factors. Number one, the country where you practice. What is happening in New York and London may not be same in India. In what phase of pandemic we are and what is the RO score. Within a country, whether we are in Mumbai, Delhi, or like you are in Kerala, Bangalore, or you are in Hyderabad, Telangana, what is your hotspot, what is happening. And changing government guideline and ICMR. In lockdown, first clear message and guideline from government and ICMR not to do elective surgery. Lockdown 2, some state governments who had a green zone, low COVID relaxed. And now yesterday we know that government has told you can actually do elective surgery with all the precaution. If testing can be done, do it at mandatory. So it's very important to tailor make the guideline, which country, which phase of COVID, which state, which zone, and what is patient's this one. So these guidelines, so according to guideline, young lady, malignant looking mass, atypical already reported, node positive, now HER2 positive, Ki-67, very aggressive tumor. And 6-8 weeks of delay definitely matters. This lady would go for anti-HER2 therapy dual if she can afford, and then chemo, and then we re-evaluate her at every month, and probably surgery would come at about 5-6 months later.
Yes, exactly. This is a very unfortunate case, because I really felt in her case, lockdown really played a bad joke on her, didn't it? And of course, in many of this, it's an aggressive tumor. It's quite large. So she had a PET, and you can see the large tumor, the lymph nodes, which are really going up to a level 1, but luckily, at least on this PET, I was there when it was being evaluated, there was no evidence of metastatic disease. So we are hoping, we're keeping our fingers crossed, and we hope that she will do well. So you can see the PET CT was done on May 7th, nearly 6 weeks later. Okay?
I just want to add one thing.
Yes.
As per the NCCN guidelines, ESMO, ASCO, PET CT scan is not mandatory in breast cancer. But you need to know that if you have a LABC like this,
Yes.
multiple node positive, CT, chest and abdomen is all that is recommended with a bone scan. And don't replace PET CT for bone scan because bone scan is more sensitive than PET. But however, the limited role of PET CT would be if you are actually using a biological therapy, which is very expensive therapy, which would show response in weeks. Now we know this patient is HER2/neu positive, and as per the standard guideline, double HER2/neu blockade. You know the cost of double HER2/neu blockade is 3 lakh to 4 lakh a month, and the response are not like chemo. They would just come back drastically within 1 to 2 months, and you can know whether to continue and make the patient waste that money or switch over to chemo. So PET scan is not a level 1 evidence, but specific indications like if you are using biological therapies to assess the response and tailor make finances, it can be done.
Okay, thank you. So that's a PET CT, and as far as I know, she started neoadjuvant chemotherapy, but I'm really not sure of the regime she's following because it's quite recent. Okay, so let's just go to the next case. So that's category, and it's a real B1 category, quite high on the category of B. Okay, so this is another patient, a 72-year-old lady, enlarging mass in the right breast. He noticed it somewhere in the end of Jan or Feb. She really was about to come to us, and then the lockdown started. She waited for some relaxation which happened in Bangalore, and then came for a consultation. So I've just shown you the right breast. The left breast was normal. Okay, so this looks quite well circumscribed. Okay, especially the anterior border, the superior border. But look at the inferior border. That's a very irregular border. It's indistinct, and it looks like a cyst on a first look. But a woman of this age had no reason to have a cyst. And actually, if you look very carefully, you can see some fine microcalcification within that. Okay, then we did an ultrasound, of course, which is expected, and we found what's known as a complex solid cystic mass. Okay, so there is a cyst, but there is a solid component within it. Okay, which looks suspicious. It didn't show much activity, much vascularity on ultrasound, but of course she needed a diagnosis. She needed a biopsy. That's what we did, and we actually got an HPR. Yes.
I just want to intervene. You know,
Yeah.
this is such a tricky patient. I'll tell you. This patient came to the outpatient, very elderly lady,
Yes,
and
very
you know what? People who practice breast specialty, they know it's one of those tense cyst. Easily, you could think, oh, this is just a complex cyst and not a solid. Clinically, you have one of those cystic complex mass. So the entire lesion, when I palpated clinically before any intervention, was cystic.
Yes.
If you show to 5 people, they would think, oh, it's just a complex cyst. And if I had put a needle in that, all I would have got it is a nice, you know, like brownish fluid, and I would have thought, oh, it is just a cyst, let me aspirate everything. I would have aspirated maybe 20, and it would have sat off, and then my cytology would have been told some inflammatory cells, no diagnosis possible. This is one case, how much it was tempting. Oh, it could be cyst, let me aspirate, let the pain go down, I'll send for cytology, which is not accurate. I would have really missed it. This emphasizes a good imaging before putting a needle, preferably an image guided. If, you know, look at this ultrasound. This is the part which is important, where we need to core. If we had treated in office, cyst, elderly lady, very smooth on mammogram, we could have easily missed that small irregularity and a small cluster of micro posteriorly, thought like, oh, well-defined edge, cystic mass, aspirate, fluid comes, send for cytology, it will come negative, it settles down, oh, beautiful, you can send back. This is a very important message to do a good imaging, if possible, image-guided core. And that's how everything was picked up very fast in 72 hours in this patient.
Exactly. So that we actually biopsied right from that solid component. And I actually thought she might have, you know, an intracystic papilloma or probably a low-grade cancer. But I was surprised to see the result. She has an infiltrating carcinoma grade 3, ER, PR, HER2 negative, and a very high Ki-67 index. So what do you feel about this? I mean, triple negative at this age, presenting as a complex solid cystic mass. Is it common?
Actually, we had a tumor board, multidisciplinary discussion at Manipal Cancer Center, today morning itself.
Yes.
I was very, very optimistic. Oh, this lady might have some, very low grade, no malignant potential breast cancer, intracystic, papillary lesion with probably some micro invasion, and such an elderly lady with no nose, smooth skin, looking just to be, if you see the cyst, it may look T2, but actually the invasive component in this is so small. So that's how the HSCC goes, T1. I could have thought 70 to 80% chance she would be ER positive. I was shocked to see that she's triple negative, and that also correlates very well to the key 67, 80%.
Okay. Yes.
So I was extremely sad I couldn't use neoadjuvant hormone therapy in this lady to call back for a breast conservation later. But one good thing is this lady has an excellent performance status, ECOG 0. So we had a tumor board discussion today. Me, my medical oncology and radiation, all three counseled her, and then we decided that she's going to go for neoadjuvant chemo. And this is something very important. Normally, the moment we plan neoadjuvant downsizing chemo with intention of breast conservation, immediately they go down to Dr. Rupa for clip placement, because the clip needs to be placed, or later if she has a clinical complete response, I don't know where to dig. But this is one lady I didn't want clip at this moment, because there is a lot of cyst. The new guideline is when you have a big lesion like that, more cystic, less solid, we don't know how it is going to sort of respond, concentric or patchy. Give a chemo or second chemo, when it shrinks and only the solid is left, then you send for clip placement. Don't wait for 3 to 4 to achieve complete response, then we all keep searching. Not immediately, after 1 and second, usually by second chemo around we send. So we had a very good discussion. We told this lady, even though you are elderly 70 plus, you will go for a chemo. We decided weekly Paclitaxel, we'll be giving for her, which would be like an excellent chemo for her after AC. And clipping will be done after 2 chemo when solid components is there, cystic sort of settles down. And then I'm planning a breast conservation surgery. So this is a very, very good case. Easily it could have been missed by all of us, but the right way she was worked up and quickly diagnosis was achieved. Good counseling was done today. And then she's going to start tomorrow. We're going to put a chemo port and she's going to start neoadjuvant chemo, clipping after second cycle.
Yeah, just managed to get her, the images of a PET CT, which was done today, okay? And you can see that the entire cyst doesn't show any uptake, but there is very avid uptake in that nodule, which we biopsied. And luckily, at least there were no palpable nodes, nothing on ultrasound either. And even on PET, I hope the nodes are negative. They're not, they look very benign on this, and no uptake elsewhere. I hope this very nice elderly lady does well. Okay.
And this is a message we always give even through Association of Breast Surgeons, ABSI. I know that whenever I discuss, we bring a practical consensus guidelines. Everybody say India is a varied country. A lot of breast surgeries are treated by general surgeon in medical college, second tier city. Cost is a very big issue, availability of expertise. So image guided is extremely very tough. You need to do an office core on your own. But it's always nice to have a good rapport with your breast imaging. And in our hospital, like I see, and I just pick the phone and I call Rupa, 95% of them have a core same day, and 48 hours we have histopathologist, 72 hours we have a immunohistochemistry in our hospital. So I tell my patient 3 days everything over, clean triple assessment. Clinical, imaging, core, 48 hours core biopsy, 72 hours from day of biopsy IHCs. So it's always worth nice taking your imaging specialist to a cup of coffee now and then, keep them in good, and then you manage to do everything on same day.
Okay, thank you, Somshekhar, for that. Yes. So that's priority again, priority B. So this is another case we talked about this scenario. Okay, this is a case which my colleague did, and you can see she's a 40-year-old post-NACT. She's finished her neoadjuvant chemotherapy. She's completed all her cycles. Just before lockdown, she had a mammogram to see the response. You can see the clip that my colleague Dr. Shilpa placed is there in the area where there's a very subtle architectural distortion. There still seems to be some microcalcification behind. Okay, so now she's finished, Somshekhar. So what do you think we should do with her? Can we really continue using? Doesn't she need surgery?
Yeah, see now, as per the new guideline during COVID response, if somebody is requires a hormone therapy first, give them a hormone therapy. if somebody needs a chemo, which is triple negative, ER negative, HER2 positive, go ahead and do post NACT.
Yes.
Now, if they have finished neoadjuvant chemo, if the COVID response pandemic is very high in your hospital, no elective surgery is allowed, you are in a hot spot. If that patient also happens to be ER positive, you can use sequential hormone therapy. Among various questions, I got about 18-20 questions already on the chat box. One of the questions that was asked was, how do you sequence chemo and hormone in a patient when you use neoadjuvant to delay surgery? ER negative patients or HER2 positive patients, chemo first. If a patient happens to be ER positive, but they are also, higher stage, high Ki67, or if they happen to be HER2 positive, you use chemo. At the end of chemo, you reevaluate what is the philosophy and then the guidelines in your hospital and ICMR guideline. If they are also ER positive, you can give hormone therapy and then delay surgery. But you know that the guideline in Karnataka where we practice is now elective surgeries are allowed since lockdown 3, and our hospital has brought out a full detailed protocol for management. So these patients has a golden window. You cannot delay surgery between 4 to 6 weeks because they've exhausted all neoadjuvant treatment. So this patient, as per all the 3 guidelines, ESMO, SSO, BASO guideline, IASO, would need a surgery. So rightfully in this patient, we did reimaging and we went ahead with a breast conservative surgery.
Correct. So that's so the preoperative skin marking. So a lot of people do put wires just to prior to surgery. My colleague Dr. Shilpa and myself actually now have a good understanding with the surgeons. We become quite good at doing preoperative skin marking, particularly if the patient is thin. Okay, the lesion is quite superficial and it's easily to access. And so this was the skin marking placed, and this was a successful removal. You can actually see the clip there. Can you see the clip there? That's a clip, and that's the small residual tumor which is remaining, and that was successfully removed after pre-op skin marking, just on the day of the surgery, just prior to going to the theatre. Right, okay, so this is one of our last few cases. Okay, this was a very interesting case. This is a 46-year-old lady who came to us in November, which is a pretty big woman with big breasts. And she said, I've felt this mass for a long time and now it seems to be increasing. So that's in the right breast. So I just showing you just the right breast mammogram films. Okay. So this looks quite well circumscribed. It has a few lobulations. It has some coarse calcification. Okay. I did an ultrasound. That was an ultrasound done in November 2019. Okay. It didn't look so innocuous on ultrasound. It had a slightly heterogeneous appearance, some irregularity in the posterior border. We urged her to do a biopsy. We did a biopsy and actually we got fibroadenoma.
Rupa, can you just go back to an imaging before this, one slide?
Yes, sorry, just a minute. Yeah.
What is the age? 46? See,
46.
Yeah, we know that at this time a fibroadenoma, benign tumor don't have to be looked at.
Exactly.
But if you look at this particular image, it is bosulated, lobulated, dumbbell shape, well defined. Remember, as per the COVID response guideline, you need to potentially rule out a phylloids or a sarcoma of the breast. They then become category 1 to treat immediately. They are the only malignant phylloids and sarcoma. So this needs an evaluation. Don't pass it off as a fibroadenoma in a lady. The dumbbell shaped and bossilation should actually, guide you. It could be a non-epithelial neoplasm. And if so, rightfully, it might need a category 1. If you core it is fibroadenoma, it is category 3, call them like 6, 7, 8 months later, repeat follow-up. Or if they are cored and benign phylloides, you can wait for 3 months. But if it happens to be malignant phylloids or a sarcoma, it needs surgery. So this needs a good triple assessment at priority A.
Yes, exactly. So that's what, so she came in November. We actually urged her to have surgery at that time. We said the biopsy has come as fibroadenoma, but there is a chance that this is phylloids. Despite a biopsy which has come as fibroadenoma, she elected to wait for at least 3 months, come back for a follow-up. But because of the lockdown, her follow-up was delayed by at least 6 months. And even she noticed a 20% increase in the size of the mass. And then you can see the typical features of a phylloids in May 2020 when we repeated our ultrasound. Again, just immediately after the lifting of the lockdown in Karnataka, you can see it looking much more heterogeneous. It's much larger. There are all those cystic spaces. We repeated the biopsy, and then we got again cellular fibroadenoma / benign phylloids. As Somshekhar says, this needs to go for surgery immediately, and that's what's happened. She's had surgery. I'm actually waiting for the report. I'm not really sure. I know it's a phylloid, but I'm not sure. I think it's a benign phylloid, but I'm not really sure whether there is a malignant lesion there. Okay, malignant phylloid. Waiting for the final biopsy. She just had surgery 48 hours ago. So this is again, as Somshekhar said, an important point. Even something which looks benign, particularly in an older woman, it looks benign, the first biopsy may be benign, but if it increases in size, you really need to take it out. Or if there is a discordance between the biopsy, so the biopsy says fibroadenoma, but it doesn't really look like a fibroadenoma to me, I would really urge the patient to do an excision biopsy. Okay, so that's what happened here, and she's had that excision biopsy, and hopefully she will do well. Okay, so that's again priority B. So last two cases, okay. This is a 58-year-old patient. She had a mammogram elsewhere. She also had an ultrasound, and she had this incidentally detected breast lesion. So for most of us, you can see that it's well circumscribed. It has an oval appearance, shows a little bit of cystic component there, but it really looked quite benign. So what category would you put this in? I mean, she just had this incidentally detected breast lesion. She came to us immediately after a lifting up of the lockdown. Somshekhar.
Yeah, it's quite suspicious. You can see the transverse axis with this. I would like to see the other cross-sectional image to look at the posterior end. This is something which would really need a image-guided core biopsy immediately.
Yes, exactly. So really, I actually thought this might be benign, and I really thought it would be a category C. But I think this patient, though the breast lesion was incidentally detected, she was being evaluated for a probable thyroid carcinoma. So I really think in this particular case, we really had to do a biopsy, prove whether this was benign or malignant, because she was going to be evaluated for this thyroid carcinoma, and she might have had surgery for that. So we actually did this biopsy, and luckily for her, that turned out to be a fibroadenoma. So the breast lesion was benign, but she's being now evaluated for a malignant thyroid nodule. And one more last case before we stop, okay? This is a 58-year-old BRCA1 patient. She has a strong family history. I did a mammogram right in the middle of complete lockdown. According to various guidelines, Somshekhar, do you think she warranted this mammogram?
Actually,
no breast symptoms.
Yeah, the current guideline is screening mammograms in an asymptomatic patients. Could be deferred, and then a patient who is BRCA positive or any risk reduction intervention or risk reduction surgery in a BRCA patient who is asymptomatic and normal on imaging can be delayed. But now we are in lockdown 4 phase, and now elective work has started. So at this phase, okay, but not during lockdown 1 and 2 probably.
Yeah, fine. So it's actually done during lockdown 1, and I'll just explain to the sequence of events. Okay, so that was a mammogram which is done, and this is actually a magnified view of the left breast. You can actually see those microcalcifications there. The morphology is not very malignant, but the distribution is, it looks rather linear there. We pulled up her old mammograms done 2 years ago. Can you imagine a BRCA1 patient didn't come to us 2 years for a mammogram? These calcifications were simply not there. So even with these calcifications, which look suspicious and looks suspicious for DCIS, during complete lockdown, would you suggest I do a biopsy? This is actually during complete
I would, this is one patient I would suggest an MRI with a breast coil dedicated in a BRCA patient. Because mammo and ultrasound alone is not a good evaluation for a BRCA patient. That is one absolute indication for MRI of the breast, MR mammogram with breast coil. That might give more information, and we know there's an absolute indication. So I would probably do that, and then if it it shows the same thing, then I know that we could either have a TCIS or invasive. I would do a core, but then stratify, re-stratify, and then decide to operate, not operate, treat now, or sort of delay it.
Yeah. So actually that was one thing I thought of. We thought of doing the MR first, but then we thought, okay, these are new calcifications. Whatever the MR shows, we would really need to do a biopsy for this. So though it looked like a category C, when you look at all the history, that is no imaging done in the last 2 years, and she was actually no breast symptoms at all. She just had that mammogram and this calcifications. But she was being evaluated for postmenopausal spotting, okay? She had, during lockdown, she actually had postmenopausal spotting. She was being evaluated for that. She was a doctor, and so category C actually became a category B. I did a core biopsy, and actually I had to send my private vehicle to get the application specialist, because the radiographer who usually
Rupa, they're excellent core pieces. We surgeons feel shy. We feel very inferior looking at such a beautiful procedure.
Yes, sir. So you can see those calcifications. We did that, and luckily for her, that was benign microcalcification. It was adenosis and epitheliosis. She was feeling very happy. She's going to come back to regular follow-up. She just asked for a period of about 2 weeks for the wound to heal, and then she'll be coming back to us for MR breast regularly. And we will follow up this calcification, because we actually saw 2 clusters. We could biopsy only 1. By the time we went to the second, she was feeling very ill and faint. So we will be keeping up her on follow-up because of the strong family history and the BRCA positivity. So to wind up, I'd like to say that one size does not fit all. Guidelines are there to guide you. They are not the law. They may have to be modified for different countries and for different states, as Dr. Somshekhar and for the situation you are in. It depends on that. You'll have to modify sometimes the guidelines to suit where you are working and in what field you are working and in what part of the country you are working. Thank you. We are open for questions now.
Yeah, thank you very much. We are flooded with a lot of questions.
Okay. I'll just get my phone. Yeah, maybe you can start, Somshekhar. I'll just.
Yeah, there are some time limit, but I will take a couple of questions, which a lot of questions have been flooded in the group.
The first question. That's great. That means there's some interest. That's great.
Actually, I want to let everybody know who are logged in. Over 850 registrations have happened for this webinar. That's like largest in India currently. We have, most of them have 300 to 400 maximum, and routine webinars are 60, 80, 100. Over 850 registration for this webinar has happened. That shows the interest in this particular topic. One question is what are the precautions one needs to take during self-diagnosis of breast and analysis? See, look at the guideline. Apply triple assessment to all the patient. And imaging, clinical, anything which is above BIRAD 4 and 5, do a core and complete it. While you do that, see, there are precautions which needs to be taken in your OPD, in your ward during this precaution. Shortly, ASI through the President, Dr. Raghuram, will come out with the guideline what everybody should follow. So you need to have a different follow-up and security, protection mechanism in the OPD and also during procedure and then also OT. Rupa very clearly showed how every mammogram is to be sterilized before we do, after patient exchange, social distancing, wearing the mask, and then wearing the visor while operating. In our hospital, what we do is we always do RT-PCR swab testing within 72 hours of planned surgery, and then we do HRCT lung within a day before or 48 hours, and then only we take those patients for surgery, even though by law it is not mandatory. You can't deny any patient a treatment, but then you need to wear a PPE and a good N95 mask and operate, potentially thinking all of them could be positive. There is another question which has written, how do you bridge hormone therapy and neoadjuvant chemo in ER positive? I partly answered this. It bases on the stage TNM staging. If it is an LABC or stage 1 or 2 and that patient is ER positive, HER2 negative, then we complete the hormone therapy. Surgery will come at 6th month. If the patient happens to be both ER positive and also HER2 positive, we first would give chemo anti-HER2 therapy. That would sort of take away 3 to 4 months. Then we assess the lockdown phase, the pandemic and the guideline. If it is still rampant, then they go for hormone therapy after chemo HER2 therapy before surgery. If they happen to be like if they happen to be in the late lockdown phase, then we straight away operate. So if you have to sequence first chemo, anti-HER2 therapy, then hormone therapy and then surgery. There is one question for you, Rupa.
Yes.
Breast imaging priorities, because you had fantastic slides initially. People are asking, can you please also quote us some references if you want to look at breast imaging priorities during this time? What one or two references you would suggest to them?
Breast imaging priority, give references. So these references, if for the COVID, actually I said it came from the consortium which had released its regulations somewhere on March 26th. You can just go to the internet and enter COVID guidelines for breast imaging, and one of the first ones you get is the consortium which I quoted here, and that is a consortium which consists of the American Society of Breast Surgeons as well as the American College of Radiology. So these are the guidelines they've given for ABC. Okay, now breast imaging priorities. So that's for the COVID. Now, if you're just talking about breast imaging priorities in general, probably as you said, anybody below the age of 40, we would definitely they come with a lump, we would start with an ultrasound and then go to a mammography if required. In our institute, generally, anybody who comes above the age of 40, whatever their symptoms, we start with a mammogram and then work backwards. So that's regarding breast imaging priorities. Okay. There is a question, 3,000 mammograms per month. In Tata Memorial Hospital, what is the duration? That was 2,700 cases which were done in 6 weeks of lockdown in Mumbai, and that data came to me from that beautiful lady, Dr. Palak, and these are real statistics. Okay, and these 3,000 mammograms were done per month, the same time during COVID last year. Okay, so generally TMH does around 2,700 mammograms a month. Okay, but it had fallen to nearly 10% of the usual thing during lockdown. Okay. Then I have this question, probably for you too, Somshekhar. I met a woman recently who's around 85-year-old. She says she has a big lump in the right breast and she's had it for the last 5 years. However, she's active and no other symptoms. Kindly share your suggestion.
85 years old lady and postmenopausal, this is not a place you have a benign lump or a fibroadenoma. I would do a triple assessment to her, clinical examination, and then based on the clinical examination, I'll do a mammogram and then tono-memo guided core biopsy to see is it one of those luminal A type of breast cancer which sort of remain localized, or it could be sometime a DCIS with a lump manifestation. So I can actually core and decide whether she just needs hormone therapy or should I wait. So I would definitely complete triple assessment minimum for this lady.
Yes, I agree too. I mean, 85 was saying she may think it's there for the last 5 years. It may be a slow growing one, but at one point or the other, it is going to ulcerate through her skin and probably produce metastatic disease, isn't it? So I have an interesting question here. Using histopathology images, can we analyze using deep learning for diagnosis? Do you know anything about that, Somshekhar?
Yeah, there are two things. Even in our hospital, there are 3 companies which have come with this. I think not many people know even GE is working on that. Now, the AI has come in 2 platforms. We know that it was available to read CT scans and X-rays in mass screening, but it is also available now. Deep learning is also, machine learning and deep learning is available for reading a mammogram and also histopathological slides, like WHO has brought a deep learning to read a, pap smear for cervix. All the images pass through that and they triage and they do. Now there are 2 companies in the world which is working on deep learning, machine learning to read histopathology. Clinical trials are going. I was part of one of a large clinical trial. I can't quote the company and the name and everything for 3 years, which is working. So it's very, very promising and it was found to be very accurate. Maybe coming time will let us know.
Yes, okay, that's good. Okay. Now, I have a question here. That's for me, perhaps. Please share the classification on mammography negative cases. Are B and C the classifications or anything else? Okay, so this is just probably a combined question. See, if a patient has a symptom which is worrisome, either a lump in the breast or, a large lump under the axilla or disturbing discharge, like bloody discharge, even if the mammogram is normal, you have to go to the next step. Okay, and in an older woman it would be to an ultrasound, and even if you don't see anything on imaging, sometimes you have to biopsy blindly. That's one of the places we sometimes biopsy blindly when we don't see anything on imaging. It's very, very important to realize, though mammography is a very good tool, even in the best of places, it can miss up to 10 to 20 cancers. So just a patient who has a symptom which is worrisome, even if the mammogram is negative, you need to go to the next step. So that's very important. It's not
I'll give an example. That last lady who was like 78 years, clinically just a 10 cyst. Mammogram, if you're not carefully looked at posterior end, you would have just passed it off as like, oh, it's just a cystic lesion. But, proper triple assessment, sono mammogram, memo, we actually picked up an invasive, and to our shock, it is a triple negative. So no role of neoadjuvant hormone or anti-HER2 therapy, and very high key 67, 80%. So unfortunately, that lady would end up with surgery. There is one more question here. Are you doing PCR test for all? If so, when? Remember, ICMR, as per their guideline, have not mandated swab test PCR for all cancer patients. It doesn't fit into the standard age guideline. Remember that 8 days. So if you look at it, the last guideline is others. Others is immunocompromised patients where treatment needs to be looked at it with lot of comorbidities, elderly, may be done, but it doesn't fit. So you can't deny a treatment to a patient or a surgery if PCR facility is not available or not done. Then you need to presume they could be COVID positive, do a infectious disease risk stratification, and then you need to operate with all full protection the way you do it. Now, what is the protocol at our hospital? We do RT-PCR for all cancer patients undergoing surgery, which would be within 72 hours of surgery. It is very important to know that PCR is sensitive first 7 days, 1 week, but not so next second week. And HRCT lung is sensitive during first part and not subsequently. If you have an antibody rapid swab test, which is not there in India, ICMR has not approved it because of reliability of the kit, then that is sensitive in the second week. So the ideal situation, like my friends in Italy and the Netherlands are doing, is at any one given point when you declare surgery is required for that patient, RT-PCR within 72 hours, then HRCT lung a day before or within 48 hours spot test. If all three are done at a time, then there is a very high chance, 95% you can identify somebody who could still be in incubation period. There is also one more question. Most of the mammography machine use X-ray. Example, images were either used. Any specific reason why? Rupa, you need to take this. Why?
Why is mammography used? The X-ray, yeah. See, the thing is, I think we need to look at all imaging as a combination. Okay, so it's the best test. What is the best test for a particular situation for a particular age group? Okay, the mammography has been found to be the backbone of breast imaging. Okay, because there are a number of studies which have showed is mammography is the most sensitive. Okay, I'm not saying ultrasound is not important, but any woman above the age of 40, you do a mammogram, and in most cases you will come to some sort of a diagnosis. Okay, ultrasound is good when you have a localized pathology. You want to see what else is that. You found the mass on mammography, you want to see what it looks like on ultrasound. Is it a cyst, or is it a complex solid cystic mass? Is it a solid mass? So you need a combination, and multiple studies have shown, particularly to pick up the margin of a lesion, to pick up microcalcifications which can have a propensity of DCIS and also of invasive cancer, that can be picked up only by mammography. So each modality has its role, and we have a combination. You have to look at a combination to get the the best diagnosis and the correct diagnosis. But I would urge all women above the age of 40, please start with a mammogram and then work back. Okay.
I will just read a question for Rupa. Dr. Palak, whom you quoted, has clarified.
Yes, has clarified. Correct.
Rupa also clarified. In TMH, in the year 2019, 7 weeks, 2,700 memo was done. Now the same 7 weeks, 2020, only 308. So you can look at it what Rupa clearly told. There is an impact that many less. However, this applies to Tata, but we don't know what is the status in the whole Mumbai, because most of the private institutions are doing elective surgeries outside, but it also varies on the hotspot and how is it. But a dedicated cancer center like TMH, large, catering large, there is institute protocol, and if the institute says this is the protocol, then everything stands still as per the protocol only is followed. So thank you, Palak, for clarifying this. There is one more question. 25-year-old lactating mother, suspicious BRAD 3, taller than wider with irregular margins. What next? Remember, triple assessment for this: clinical examination, ultrasound, then look, what is it? Is it a cyst? Is it solid? And then put a BRAD 3, 25-year-old lactating mother, ultrasound, BRAD 3. Rupa, what would you do?
See, this is actually a little bit of an oxymoron if you look at it. See, you're written 25-year-old lactating mother with suspicious BRADS 3 lesion. Okay. You're saying it's taller than it's wider with irregular margins. So it's no longer BRADS 3. It's BRADS 4. Okay. You say it's taller than it's wider. It has irregular margins. So you're not really thinking of a galactosele. You're not really thinking of an abscess. This very well could be a carcinoma. You really need to biopsy it. That's what I feel. Okay, we've seen a lot of lactating women, and actually in India there's supposed to be an increase in an increasing incidence of breast cancers in pregnancy and lactation in India as compared to the other countries. Definitely something like this on ultrasound, you would need to biopsy it. Doesn't sound like a galactosele or an abscess to me from your description.
We promised, we would end at 8, but we went to 2. So I will end with last 2 things.
Yes.
Number 1. Yeah, so we need to, all good things has to come, because questions are pouring in and we can't sort of keep it on. Last 2 things. Number 1, there is a question. All the images, Rupa, you showed in your PowerPoint look to be like on a Barco monitor with a high resolution. We just wanted to know, during lockdown, did you use the same high resolution and you did it the same way? Otherwise, you would have done in non-COVID time, or you made something?
Absolutely. Whatever care we gave to the patient, it was the same care which we would have given in a pre-COVID area. So we did it on our usual mammography machine. We looked at all the images on that high resolution monitor. What we would have done pre-COVID, we did it with the same care, with actually more care to protect both ourselves and the patient. Okay. And somebody asked, those the mammography. Yes, the mammography, the calcifications which I biopsied, that was mammographically guided. The stereotactic biopsy guided. And as I told you, sometimes stereotactic biopsy can be a little tricky. And I didn't have that was in lockdown. I didn't have my usual radiographer with me, and actually I sent my private vehicle with the stamp of doctor to get the application specialist to help me with that case. Yeah.
See, finally we have to end. It's not a question; it's a comment. Dr. Raghuram, the ABSI founder and the ESI president, has written excellent presentation, Dr. Rupa and dear Somshekhar. Practical, pragmatic, very useful information. Straight from your experience on clinical practice, and congratulations team Manipal Hospital, Manipal Cancer Center. Thank you very much. With that note, I think we have to end questions. A lot of questions pouring in. All good things has to come to an end.
Yes.
I thank Dr. Rupa and GE, and last words to Rupa.
Oh yes, thank you. It's been a wonderful 1.5 hours. Yeah, that's been great. I've had a lot of fun preparing this presentation, interacting with Somshekhar, deciding what to put on, what to take off. I've had a lot of hiccups with my Wi-Fi, with my computer, and thanks to GE and to Dr. Som for being so patient till we got this right. Thank you for participating, all you, the audience, and the wonderful questions. Probably myself and Som will just try to sit tonight and answer some of those questions through GE, and probably they can, provide the answers to those people who have asked them. And once again, thank you everybody for logging in. Thank you particularly to Dr. Raghuram. I'm honored that you would, attended this and that you enjoyed the session. And thank you, audience. Thank you, G. And last but not least, thank you, Dr. Somshekar.
Thank you, Ambika.